Okay. Hello, fellow lolsters. Today we have Radhika with us, and uh, it's her debut book today. We are going to talk about, and very excited to have a young writer. We always have either very experienced writer or an illustrator or a editor. Today we have a debut young author. Welcome, Radhika. Over to Danya for a
Thank
proper
you. Thank you so much.
introduction. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Radhika Iyengar is the author of her debut book, Fire on the Ganges, Life Among the Dead in Banaras. She's a graduate of Columbia University, Graduate School of Journalism, New York. Radhika won the Red Ink Award for Excellence in Indian Journalism and has been a recipient of Wallace India Trust Fellowship, the Sanskrit Prabha Dutt Fellowship, and Sangam House Residency. We're very happy to have you on the show, Radhika.
And
Thank you so
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
yes,
being here.
honored, Radhika. Very happy. And let's
Honors
start
all
with
mine.
and let's start with the theme of your book, maybe. And could you please share with us the reason behind your, picking this theme, a unique one, I felt, well, when I read about your book, let's begin with that. So how did you pick that theme?
Sure. So, my book, Fire on the Ganges, focuses on a small community of corpse burners called the Domes in Banaras.
Mm.
And it delves into their everyday lives, their realities, and it describes their conditions, what the corpse burners do every day, where they work, which is at Manikarnika Ghat. It's supposed to be considered to be the holiest cremation ground in the country.
Mm.
And Domes are a Dalit subcaste.
Mm.
And even though they are, in Hindu society, it is believed that the Domes have the ownership of something called a sacred fire, which has been burning for centuries.
Okay.
And it is believed that if a devout Hindu is cremated using the sacred fire, they will receive moksha, which is this liberation from the cycle of death and rebirth. Um, so, in that sense, the domes are, their fire, and by extension, the work they do and the community is regarded as they're quite important in the whole in performing the last rites in Hindu society. But at the same time, they are considered by um, several dominant caste Hindus as untouchables. Um, and so this dichotomy is something which really interested me. And I came across actually, I was I was pursuing my master's in journalism at Columbia University in New York, and I had to work on a thesis project, and I was looking for a subject, and there were multiple subjects that I was considering, but I one day came across one article on the Dome community, and that really stirred my curiosity in one sense, and I wanted to know more about the community. And the more I researched, I realized that there wasn't sufficient information available on this community, and whatever information that was available um, was anchored to their work at the cremation ground. There weren't other aspects of their lives that were looked at or explored, and so I decided that that is something that I would like to do. So so this book follows the lives of 5 to 6 individuals from the community who are trying to take reins of their own lives in one sense, and lead a life different from the one that is accorded to them, because this is the profession of burning corpses is a very caste-bound profession. It's inherited from father to son. And the domes don't really have alternative professions to choose from. So my book actually tries to follow, for example, the life of a young man from the community who is the only person from the community who has managed to leave the basti and pursue higher education. So he's studying in another city, but over there he hides his caste and his identity. So yeah. So it's about him, about how he manages to pull himself out of a very from pull himself out from the city and study very hard. He's very ambitious. He's very intelligent. So he's one of the people whose lives I follow, and I try to see whether he's able to completely move away from this caste-bound profession, and whether he's able to really achieve whatever he wants to achieve in life. So and then there are, of course, other individuals from the community whose lives I follow as well. So
great.
Okay. So it's a very different and a very unique theme that you've taken and handled, and I'm sure you had to go meet the community, talk to a lot of them, and I understand as a journalist you have an experience in doing such things for your work. So how different was you researching, like first-hand research? I mean, like direct research. How different is you researching for journalism and you researching for fiction? How different was this research for you?
I think it was difficult. It was quite an intense process. It took a lot of commitment, a lot of focus, and one also had to come to terms with that things will not always go your way. So, so my answer to this question is a very long one, and we'll be here till tomorrow. But in a nutshell, like I said, it involved a lot of hard work, a lot of research, and one needs to be very certain of the story they want to tell. And in this regard, like I looked at a narrative structure. I tried to come up with a chapterization, and those became my guiding points as to what kind of research I would need to do in order to tell an authentic, fact-based, rigorously reported piece. Sorry, not piece, a book. Sorry, I'm a journalist, so I keep talking about articles and pieces. But in this regard, of course, I'm talking about the book, and it. So it involved countless interviews. It involved going there. Um, I reported over a course of 8 years. So it involved getting to know the members of the community, establishing a relationship with them, establishing a kind of understanding and level of trust, where they felt secure enough to talk to me and reveal things about their lives and open their world to me. So that was a very that took time. It wasn't easy to build that level of trust, especially when one is an outsider.
And the moment
and
you
quite
say you're
frequently,
a journalist,
yes, yes. No, I didn't understand the point you
I
were
mean, you
making.
said when you to build trust, it takes time and all right. It's not easy. Then I said,
Yes,
the moment you
yes,
say you're an outsider, you said, I said, and you're a journalist. When you say you're a journalist, all the more they're not
yes,
going to,
absolutely.
yeah. So,
Yeah, and I mean, they would look at me from a very, initially, I think they did look at me from a very skeptical, they looked at me very, uh, they weren't sure what my reason was to come and talk to them and to want to know about them. And so I had to tell them that I was writing a book and I was interested in knowing about their lives, their traditions, um, what their aspirations were, because nobody wants to grow up to become a corpse burner. So I was very keen to really understand how the Dome men, for example, how they have been, um, how working at the cremation ground impacts them psychologically, also physically, because this is a very dangerous kind of work. You are lighting fires, you're handling dead bodies. Of course, it's going to affect them. And they don't want to, obviously, when you're young children, if you are told that you're going to grow up to cremate corpses and that's where your life ends. I mean, that's what your life is going to be about, that this is your work, that this is the only way you're going to earn a livelihood by cremating the dead.
Yeah.
That's a very, how would, as children, that really impacts you.
Yeah.
So that was my process to try to understand how everyone from the community is coping with something that is deeply caste bound, and how are they leading their lives on a daily basis, especially when they're considered untouchables by many dominant caste Hindus.
So what made you decide on writing as a non-fiction rather than a fiction?
I'm actually, like I said, I'm a journalist and I have been in the field for over 10 years now. And journalism, nonfiction is something I thrive in. And I think I enjoy speaking to people, getting to know about them, their lives. And I'm also interested in telling their stories. When it comes to fiction, I think it's a great, it gives you a lot of uh, liberty in one sense to um, explore a very imaginative universe. And you can build characters from scratch, or you can build a composite of characters. And I somehow I prefer sticking to writing about the people who I meet.
Fair enough.
And
I mean,
yeah,
if I like
yeah,
fiction to read and write,
of course,
if you like non-fiction to read and write, it's the same. But I have a question here. So you are actually reporting as it is, or can I say there is some element of creativity there, where it comes, if I can know about that, please.
In terms of creative nonfiction, I think at the end of the day, one has to tell the story, but that has to be based on facts and solid groundwork in reporting. When it comes to fiction, I think you have to have a narrative structure in place. You have to have, there are character developments, and then there are timelines, and even interesting plot devices like cliffhangers that one can use. And I think when you're writing nonfiction, you can use those same tools for telling your story. In terms of having a narrative structure in place. In terms of character development as well, because I was following these, a few individuals, their lives over a course of 8 years, I could map the trajectory of their lives. So the character development happened there. And interesting plot devices, like I said, cliffhangers, or all of those really help telling the story, which is fact-based, but is telling it in a way so that the pace of the narrative is strong, and the reader is kept engaged. So I think from
That's
that point of
interesting.
view, it really helps.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So I understand that it has like 6 different characters, and you are basically ensure it's there is some chronology to it. You're basically following their lives through a course of 8 years, and you said that you've used some like some elements of fiction to make it more engaging for the reader.
No,
But
no, no.
Not
I
elephant.
didn't
like
It's
not
use
tools.
let's
It's
let's
just
call
elements of
some
tools.
fiction.
techniques, yeah, some two techniques that fiction writers use to introduce, like in non-fiction
But
you have used the
that
same
is with
techniques.
narrative nonfiction. Yes,
Yeah,
with
yeah, got it.
narrative nonfiction, that is, yeah.
Understood. So what I would like to know is, like, when you use such techniques, does it take away the, like, there is some I don't know, I'm not sure what to call that, like a form of like
Honest to it.
abstract truth, yeah, rawness and abstract truth when it comes to nonfiction, which fiction the writer has to build that authenticity, whereas nonfiction has it on its own, because it is a story, it is a real story, so it has that rawness and it has that abstract truth. So was it tough for you to achieve that, having these tools of fiction, I mean, using these techniques of fiction in a nonfiction? Am I making myself
Uh,
clear?
um, I don't think it was tough. What
Mm-hmm.
I did work with, I think before I started writing, I had
Mm-hmm.
already had a lot of material because I'd done a fair amount of reporting. So I already knew which direction the book or the stories were heading. But I didn't know how it's going to end.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to writing the book, um, I had already done a lot of transcribing of the interviews, and I've
Oh.
spoken to them, and I've had, like, I think hundreds of interviews that were there, and I needed to transcribe. And when I was doing that, I knew that these are the important points that I need to focus on. This is going to be the core of the narrative storytelling. Um, because I wanted to, of course, give the backdrop of the cremation
Manikarnika.
ground, which is Manikarnika Ghat, and I wanted to give the readers an understanding of what Manikarnika Ghat is like, what it is like for dome men to work over there, for every day, um, at a very pitiable amount of money. So that was the backdrop that I knew I had to work with. And then I wanted to go deeper into the lives of each of these individuals, what it is like to work as a corpse burner. So I spoke to corpse burners, and then there is Mohan and Akash, two individuals whose names have been changed, but I interviewed them, and their stories are in the book. Um, there is Bhola, who's this young man who I spoke about earlier, who leaves Chand Ghat, which is the neighborhood or the Dome Basti. Chand Ghat is also, I've changed the name to protect the identity of the people who I've interviewed. So Bhola is the person who leaves Chand Ghat, who goes to Ludhiana to study, to pursue a higher education. And then there's Dolly, who is a widow. She's a young widow with 5 children. And I follow her life, how she sells all her jewelry, and she opens a small shop right at the threshold of her one-room home. And she does so is so to earn a livelihood and to support her children. And that creates a lot of stir within the community, a lot of resentment within the community, because women are not allowed to work
Widows
or
are.
earn, rather. No, not only widows, women in
Okay.
general in that basti, in the
Okay.
Dome community, are not
Okay.
expected to earn
Well,
or have any kind of financial independence. So, so and then so I follow her life, how she tackles these kind of this backlash that she suffers, and how she sort of pulls out of it and becomes a woman of sheer resilience. And I map that trajectory, like how she was quite naive before, and by the end of the book, you see a complete transformation of her. So these are the kind of stories that I am telling, and these are real people who have lived these experiences, living
So
very real lives.
These people who you are following are from this technological world, right? And I was wondering, how deep was your research? Did you talk to them about their ancestors? Are you bringing in some of the ancestral stories also? Share with us about that, please.
So I spoke to, of course, them and their families, and I spoke. I also spoke to an elderly couple. So I've spoken to a fair amount of people in that community. And what is also interesting is that for someone who belongs to an older generation, their idea of caste is very different from someone like Bhola, who's this young man. And if you really look at Bhola, he's not trying to hide his caste because he's ashamed of who he is. He's very proud of his identity, but he's also he fears this backlash or a repercussion that he might potentially encounter if people in his college, if his classmates or his teachers got to know who he was. Because from his own experiences, he has faced that kind of a distancing by people who from dominant castes who when they learn about who he is or which community he comes from, they distance themselves from him. And of course, we
even
have
in the city
a fair amount
where
of
he went.
Even in the city, yes. We have, like India, we have a fair amount of incidents that are that describe how prevalent caste violence is and caste discrimination is in our country, and it continues to take place. And when it comes to the older generation, so when one of the first times when I went to Chand Ghat, I met this elderly couple, and they just placed their palms together, and I saw them shrink their shoulders inwards to make themselves look smaller, appear smaller, and not take up too much space in my presence. And it was like it was more of a, like, I don't know how to describe that experience, because they did not who did not know who I was, but they knew that I was someone from quite
City.
visibly someone from a dominant caste, someone from dominant caste and class, and caste is so deeply ingrained in their psyche that they thought that this was the way of greeting someone. And I was old enough to be their granddaughter, so it and then this experience of mine, which I feel is so it became even more relevant because recently I read an article where an elderly Dalit man was beaten, and he was tied up and assaulted because he was assaulted by two dominant caste men, and he was abused and ill-treated because he did not greet them with folded hands. So, I mean, this continues to happen even today. And it's a very disturbing society that we live in. And you try to understand uh, where humanity is
I
at
know. I
at
know.
this stage.
I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, Bola, he's in Ludhiana studying. For example, you keep saying, I follow. I want to understand. Are you in touch with him? For example, he's in first year of his graduation, second, when he's going to third year, what are the things he's going through? Do you keep so much of interaction throughout? Do you do that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So when we meet Bhola in the book, he is in college, and of course now many years have passed, so he's in a different place now,
Okay.
different city.
Ah.
But yes, I was constantly in touch with him. I still am very much in touch with him. But during my reporting, also I used to speak to him on the phone. We used to have video calls whenever he, had some free time or on weekends. And he would tell me about his experiences. So all of that is recorded in the book. By the way, just want to show my book.
So nice, so nice. Yes, of course, of course. Quite a big book. I mean, it's a thick book from what I mean. And so how long did you take? I mean, must be 7 to 8 years?
Yes, 8 years.
Yes. Good. Very nice to
So
know.
how different was your editing process for the book from your editing process that you go through for your journalism for your career, I mean? Or did you have any part in editing the book, or did you use external editors? How did the editing go?
Sure. So when it comes to writing articles, I think editing is a breeze in comparison to editing a book. And I say that because an article would be what 1,000 words, 1,500 words. Long form, of course, is a different ball game altogether. But when I was working on this book, and once I'd submitted my manuscript, of course, it had its own rounds of edits, and I also worked with a sensitivity editor for this. So it was a very sharp and clinical process of editing, um, where I think in terms of readability also, I got feedback about how to change a few things, because as a writer and a journalist alone, you can't do the job. I think it takes a team to do it, and I really feel the editors who I worked with were really supportive, really on board, and I'm certain, I'm 100% certain that they made this book much better than
I'm
what it
interested
is
in
right now,
knowing
or what it
about the
was.
sensitivity editing, please. Can you share with us? Because this book is a sensitive book. That's why I think I would like to
Yes.
know about that,
Yes.
please. Thank you.
So this book is, of course, it deals with a very sensitive subject. And
How is it done? I
like
mean, the
I've mentioned,
sensitivity, editing.
so for the sensitivity reader to come on board, of course, we would share batches. I would send her my manuscript in batches, and then she would go through it. She would um, read it, give me her feedback, and then we would work together and make those changes or tweaks. And I think in this day and age, it's very important because especially for someone who doesn't belong from the community. Of course, I'm a journalist, and I'm very true to my profession. I think if one writes with empathy and is sensitive and asks very informed questions and has done her research and is committed um, to spending time with the community and really trying to show their lives in the most sincere and genuine way, um, while sticking to facts. I think that's what a journalist's job is and what they should do.
Okay.
And that's what I have done as well. But the sensitivity reader, of course, is someone who helps make the storytelling or the narrative more, more, I think, uh, how do I put this? She was just making sure that certain things were written in a certain way, which because in this climate, in today's political climate, certain things can get misconstrued even when things are not
Yeah, yeah,
meant to be
yeah.
in that sense. And so, of
Uh.
course, so so yeah, from that point of view, it was very helpful. But and I feel that a lot, whoever is working on a book that deals with a sensitive issue should have a
So
sensitivity reader on
where
board.
do you strike a balance in such a, because yes, I can understand we don't give any scope for construing, right? Okay, fine. But sometimes you want to say something through a sentence, but your sensitive editor says if you're going to use these two words, it might become too overly controversial. Do you want to change it? Yes, you want to change it also, but you would rather have one of the words, only the other word you will change. What happens then?
So that liberty is at the end of the day with me.
With author.
She would give her suggestions,
Mm.
and if those suggestions make sense, where I feel that yes,
Mm.
this is a fair point, then of
Mm.
course
Yes.
the change will be made. But
Mm.
if she has misinterpreted something and given a suggestion which I feel is maybe not factual or
Mm.
maybe not
Mm.
fitting the
And
the
she
real
took your
experience of the individual,
explanations.
yes, she would. And then
That's
she would
good.
understand also, because I would tell her that this is why I'm
Mm.
not
Mm.
going to make this change, and then she would understand, because we would
Mm.
have those conversations.
Mm.
um and so I think one also needs to have that kind of a relationship with your
Yeah, yeah.
editor, your sensitivity
So who
editor as well, where
suggested the
you
sensitivity editor to you? Is the publisher who suggested?
no, I wanted to have a
Oh,
sensitivity
brilliant.
reader.
That's very
Yes,
professional.
that
Very
was,
nice. Very
yeah,
nice.
thank you.
Mm.
But my
Mm.
publishers were also on board. The moment I
Mm.
recommended
Mm. Mm.
having a
Mm.
sensitivity reader on board, they
Mm.
they were very willing. So I think
So,
that was
so
very, very,
how
yeah.
was your publishing journey? Like, how was like did you submit it to literary agents, or did you directly approach publishers? The cover letters, the rejections. How did that journey go?
Um, so when I started writing, when I started reporting on the community, um, I'd already done, of course, a fair amount of research, because,
Yes.
like I said, I'd worked on my thesis. Um,
Videos of.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can repeat the answer from the first. Do you want me to ask the question again, or are you fine with answering it
No,
as it
no,
is?
I'm fine.
Mm.
So I'd already done a fair amount of reporting for my book, and right after my thesis, of course, I had quite a bit of material to work with, but it wasn't sufficient. And there was a period when I, of course, was applying for grants and mentorship that would further help my reporting. And during this period, I faced a lot of rejections uh, for grants, and there was a point where it almost broke me, because I just didn't feel like reporting anymore, and almost quit. I almost quit writing my book, and I think I didn't write or report for 2 months. After which I realized that I needed to come back to my manuscript, and um, because I also felt that this was a subject which was very important, and the stories really needed to be told. So so I'm also like I practice Buddhism,
Hmm.
and there's a story that I they teach you while as a practitioner, and I'll share it in layman terms so that you can understand. But the idea is that suppose you're traveling to a particular destination, and it takes you 12 days to reach that place. Um, and it's a rigorous terrain, and and it's you, um, how do I explain it? You travel, and you spend many sleepless nights traveling. And on the 11th day, you're really tired,
Hmm.
and you decide to quit and tell
Mhm.
yourself, it's not worth it. I can't do this anymore. And you decide to head back rather than, moving towards your original destination,
Mhm.
um, which is just one day away. So
Yes,
then all the efforts you made over that period of
it's all
11
wasted.
days is equal to nothing. Yeah, it is all wasted. Um, and you're just a day away from
Yes.
arriving at your destination. And so that was something I really imbibed, and I told myself that, listen, you've done this hard work, and you need to keep going. But so I decided that my next step should be writing a proposal, and pitching it to a literary agent. And I had these fantastic literary agents of mine, um, called, and they work at a suitable agency, and they were interested in my book proposal from the get-go. So that was a very validating moment for me. And then they helped me pitch my book to different publishers, and from these six well-known publishing houses showed interest. So
Mm,
that was a huge vote of confidence for me. So
that's good.
um, from then on,
Mm,
things moved
mm,
positively.
lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Mm.
Okay.
So,
So yeah, that's like a see it you not just the story of those, but your journey of publishing this book itself, it's very inspiring because I have never
yes.
heard of someone take like the research so seriously that they had to take 8 years just for research and
Yeah.
just to understand and just to completely know the story before they started. I mean, before I'm sure that you started writing while you were listening to their stories, but like you said, it had the end or where it was going to stop. You could decide only as you kept writing the book, and I understand how jarring and how exhausting the journey would have been as well, mentally and physically. But I would like to
Yes.
know how the fellowships and how these awards that you have received and the mentorships that you have received have helped you in publishing this book, or have they helped you in publishing this book?
So I like I said, I began my reporting around 2015, and around 2019 is when of course, I received one grant, called the Sanskriti Prabha Dutt Fellowship, which helped me report. But that was around, I think, 2017. And then I did a fair amount of reporting. And then in 2019, I became a writer in residence at Sangam House, Residency, which is in Bangalore. And I think that's when I really sat down with the material I had, and I started writing. Um, and so I really feel a place like Sangam House, or any place where you can become a writer of residence, for me, it was just a different kind of freedom. Because when you are working at home, or I was, of course, at that period of time I had a full-time job, so I would work and then come back and then work on I would work on my journalism articles at my full-time job, and then I would come back home and then I would work on my manuscript, and it became very, very difficult to do. So at that time I would transcribe instead. And but the moment I got the residency, because I was able to be away from my home, where there were no demands of, um, answering doorbells or
Yeah.
uh, ordering groceries or other demands of running a house. I could just focus at this residency on this priority, which was writing the book. And I feel for anyone who is an aspiring author, um, one needs to apply for um, residencies because they become enablers. They help you just focus on something, um, on a project that you are really committed and passionate about. Because at home there are other distractions, and someone can not always write, which, I mean, of course I did that also. I did write my manuscript while I was at home as well, but I feel a residency is really supportive in that sense to um, enhance your writing experience. And at a residency like Sangam, there were other authors who were also part of the program. And of course, each one of us were working on our own books, but there was also a sense of camaraderie. So if one needed to brainstorm an idea, because we all knew who's working on what, so we could brainstorm ideas, or also just because a writer's journey is very solitary in one sense, and it does get lonely sometimes. But just to know that there is another author who's going through that same experience, um, of just working and reporting and researching, and it's very rigorous, and it can get very um, taxing also sometimes. Um, and so, but if you know that there are other people who are going through a similar journey, it sort of makes you feel that, okay, you're on the
You
right
are
path.
not alone. So yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Understood.
but
Understood.
yes,
So I just,
yeah,
yeah, please carry on.
no, so that's what, those that's how residencies help.
I
Um,
missed I
they
missed
become
that the literary agent who represented you. Who's that?
a suitable agency,
A
a
suitable
suitable
agency.
agency.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So
Mhm.
I'm very sure that though the book is nonfiction, I'm very sure that it would even be a good adoption if it was picked for screen, because
Yes.
it looks like a very nice and a very
Yeah,
a
it is a
sensitive story.
screen
Yeah,
material.
yeah,
Yeah.
screen worthy material. I'm sure.
Mm.
I just hope that the next time we meet you, you would have had some contact with someone who can make it into a screenplay, and some form of more publish uh, how to say, publicity and more promotion to your book happens in screen as well. And I just wish you that,
Yes.
wish and hope that it happens.
Yes.
But
Wish you the
Yeah.
we just have one last question, after which we'll go to the next segment of this session. And my last question to you in this segment would be, um, how have book reviews and social media helped you in promoting and pushing the book forward?
Um, so social media and book reviews, I think book reviews are very, very important once a book is published, especially for debut authors or authors who have published one or two books, because you're still trying to create a space for yourself in a very competitive market.
Mm.
Um, and when it comes to promoting a book, I feel if you've written you know a book of extreme a book that is important,
Mm.
then you really hope that a lot of people read it and get
Mm.
informed. Uh, so, for example, when I was working on this book, when I would speak to people about it, many people
Mm.
didn't even know of the existence of a community called the Domes, or that
Mm.
there's a community that specializes in cremating corpses, or that this is highly caste-ridden profession. Uh,
Mm.
so, so from that viewpoint, the idea of writing this book and documenting their stories was important so that people become more aware about their existence, that
Mm.
the domes are no longer invisible in society, which they are at the moment. Even though during COVID they had fleetingly been documented during that period. But after that, and again, that documentation was only limited to their work at the cremation ground. So, um, so when it comes to book reviews, I think it's very important to because that's how people and potential readers get to know of the existence of books. And social media is also something uh, which is something that helps promote the book. Um, but having said that, like I feel that as long as you have a good um a good book and you're confident about it, I think that's what matters, and people will find it any which way. So
Mm.
So how many
I don't
times
know if
did
I'm
you? Yeah,
answered
of
your
course
question.
you did. So how many times did you go to Varanasi, and when was the first time you went?
So the first time I went was in 2015.
Mm,
That was when I'd started working on my thesis.
mm,
And then over a course of 8 years, I
mm,
went there quite regularly. And then
mm,
the times when I was not there physically, I
mm.
was always in touch with them.
Okay,
Thanks to technology,
I know. Mhm.
I could do video calls with them,
Yeah,
and really know what was going on and how certain events were shaping in their lives.
yes.
So that was really helpful. But
Mm,
yes, I was constantly in touch with them, and I would go to Varanasi quite often for reporting. And uh, like I said, I have countless recordings and interviews, which and many notes that are there
mm.
with me.
So we are
Wonderful.
moving
Wonderful.
to the world of W. Danya,
Mm.
you may want to tell about.
Yeah.
Mm,
So the next segment of the session is called World of W's. World of W's is nothing but W questions like what, when, where, and all that. So if a listener could not sit through the entire session, they could just scroll down to here and just listen to a gist of it and understand what we've spoken in the entire session. So they would be, they would get a snapshot of what we spoke. So my first question to you in the world of W's would be, if you could, what was the name of your publisher and your agent, if you could let us know.
My publisher is HarperCollins, and my agent is a Suitable Agency.
oh, great. So what's your next book about?
I have a few ideas that I'm considering, but uh, but everything is at a very, I think those ideas are at a very nascent stage. I can't really discuss them at the moment.
Hmm.
Can we expect fiction from you, or are you going
Yeah.
to stick to the non-fiction part?
At the moment, I think I will be sticking to nonfiction, but
Mhm.
I think in the
Got it.
future, maybe I will explore fiction as well, God willing.
So where can our audience find your works?
So there's my website, which is
Mm,
www.radhikaiyengar.squarespace.com. And of course, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, which is at the rate Radhika_IY. And if you just, I think, Google articles by Radhika Iyengar, you'll be able to find some of my writings.
Great. Yeah. So we would like to know, because as Ms. Jayanti had mentioned, your book is a thick book. So how many drafts? Right now, how many pages is it? And what I'm sure it had a lot of drafts, like you had a first draft, second draft, and all that. Like, which was your largest draft, and how much have you reduced it to when it was published?
So it's about 320 pages, or slightly over 320. It's around that figure. When I submitted my manuscript, it was about, I believe it was close to 1 lakh words. Now it's somewhere around 85 to 88,000 words.
Okay. So I think that's all. It's from us. We would like to know if you have any parting words for our listeners and aspiring authors who are interested in writing nonfiction books, and if you could share with us how you felt through the session, about the session, and everything.
Oh, thank you so much. I've had a great time. This was quite an engaging conversation, and I think I would tell aspiring writers, if you have a book in mind, or anything for that matter, any big project that you are working on, you need to stay committed to it. And I know there will be times when you will feel like giving up, when you will wonder whether you are the right person to tell the story, or whether you've done enough work. But I think, one really has to battle one's mind and really stay very resolute on their path, because at the end of the whole experience, you will feel very rewarded, and you will certainly feel very like you've achieved something which you've always wanted to achieve. So I think one should just stay very committed even during the dark times.
I know.
Thank you.
Very important.
Thank you.
I think
Thank you so much.
As authors, you would know. Yeah.
Of course.
We have had,
it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It
is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having